In this video, we're going to be talking about Kaspa's emission schedule. And we're first going to start off by looking at this Reddit post that was 3 days ago on the Kaspa mining Reddit. So what comes after mining? A long time ago, someone posted in the CC a long and informative post about Kaspa. Unfortunately, they didn't have the answers for my question and told me I had better luck asking it in here. It slipped my mind until I saw Kaspa reaching its all-time high. So my question is, I see that Kaspa has some fairly aggressive halving schedule. The last Kaspa will be mined approximately 35 years according to some comments I read here. Because mining is just like the first phase, but what comes next then? From what I see, most of the community actively mines. Obviously, we have a load of miners in the community, and I'm a miner myself and I'm making content around it. Unlike the communities of other coins where miners are a small subset. What will happen afterwards? How will miners sustain the expense of mining? So I like what he said here, that the other communities of coins where miners are a small subset. I feel like a lot of people that are mining Kaspa right now are also heavily involved in the community. Just because you can actually solo mine with a small amount of hash rate. So a lot of people are getting lucky on the network and they have an actual chance to get blocks instead of just going for pools. Which, no matter how optimized the algorithm is, it still requires energy and keeps the hardware occupied. Are the TNX fees supposed to cover for everything as the Bitcoin protocol? But they won't be facing such an issue for a very long time, unlike Kaspa. And then it goes on to say a related question. I have read some expressing the idea that the protocol can be adjusted in cases like this to become less of an issue. And doesn't it kind of reduce investor trust in the project? So obviously they don't want to change the actual, code of the coin because they've already set it out initially, like with no ICO and no pre-mine and fair launch. And they really want to keep it that way. I know they're updating the actual network with Dagnite and stuff like that, but these principles that they wanted to keep, so you can't just change the halving schedule unless it was down to a vote. But then I feel like it makes it less valid if we start voting and changing these type of things, like how much supply there is or how much halving there is. Since it might become something else at any point, is it true that other projects have done it, Ethereum among others, but almost always was extreme measure to address unforeseen issues, and it's not like they weren't heavily criticized for it. So that's just a little post about what comes after mining in terms of, extending the supply schedule or extending how many coins there are issued. And then it says here, good question, didn't do your own research, so didn't find it yet. Maybe POS like ETH, I'm curious too. So there's a lot of people asking, like, they're curious about it as well. So I thought I might as well make a video. So let's jump into what the actual end of emissions looks like for Kaspa. And we have this end of emissions medium post here. When Kaspa block reward ends, the fees become the reward. This is how Bitcoin works. And this is what Bitcoin's going to do as soon as the mining has run out. They're basically going to run on fees. That's how you supply the miners. So this is actually their emission schedule. As we can see here, we've got a bigger version of it. And you can see the months at the bottom here, and then the total supply here. So when it gets to around 51 months, a lot of the supply is going to be mined, and there's only going to be a little bit left after that many months. So it goes on to say in here, the end of the blockchain emissions is when the blockchain system stops generating new tokens or coins. This stop in coin production can happen for a few reasons, such as reaching a maximum supply limit specified in the blockchain's code, such as, Bitcoin when they don't have any more blocks to be mined in terms of Bitcoins to be mined. When blockchain emissions end, miners may want to switch to other blockchains that are still generating coins, or with chains like Kaspa, miners can continue to mine for transaction fee rewards instead. So that's how we're going to actually upkeep the network, is through transaction fees in 35 years. Since Kaspa's consensus mechanism is designed with longevity in mind, there are no plans to migrate to any other consensus method, nor will there be any less demand for miners. Kaspa will still need miners to secure the network after emissions, and their services will be rewarded with transaction fees. There is a never-ending speculation when a proof-of-work chain reaches the end of emissions. With Kaspa, however, the plan is set in stone or in code. So we haven't actually seen any major proof-of-work chains reach the end of emissions. So we don't really know what's going to happen after that and if the network will stay up or if it will be upheld by miners. When Kaspa blockchain reaches the end of emission, the maximum block reward specified in the code will be equivalent to the value calculated by, and then it's just a calculation, by the end of the 14th year of the Kaspa emission on a basis of 1 blocks per second. So this, we're not talking about the 32 blocks per second yet. So this is the first year phase for Kaspa's. We actually have a full table here of all the years. So as you can see, we're going down we've got 2031, 2032, and then the last coins are going to be mined in 2037. Around that time. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be around that time. Anyway, here's the breakdown. Since the formula calculates the maximum single block reward in Kaspa, this determines the year of Kaspa emission based on the transaction fee and the number of UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs, number of transactions, and block production rate. So here's the actual breakdown of this. So it's 0.001 CAS per UTXO. This is the transaction fee for each UTXO in a transaction. A maximum of 85 of these UTXOs can occur in a single transaction, and a maximum of such 5 transactions can occur in a block. Therefore, if you do the calculation of 5 times 85 times 0.01 here, you get 0.0425 CASP as being the maximum total transaction fee for all transactions in one block. So if you mine one block, the maximum fee you can get as a miner is 0.0425 CAS per coin, given that there's a maximum of 5 transactions with 85 UTXOs. This is a logarithmic calculation where the logarithm base is 2 since the block reward is reduced 2 times each year. The argument of the logarithm is the chromatic phase of 440 Kaspa divided by the maximum total transaction fee of 0.0425 CASP. The result is then added to 0.5 the first half of the year before the halving. So they're just talking about the first phase, which is right up here, and that starts in 2022 and ends in 2023. So this is going to end in around 4 months for us, and then it's going to go into the second year chromatic phase. On the 14th year of Kaspa's emission is when the block reward equals the coin-based block reward, given a constant block production rate of 1 block per second. So I know that they're going to have this Kaspa Rust rewrite coming in, which will actually change this, and we'll have to look and see in the white paper how this is going to change the emission schedule. For the case of the 32 blocks per second, this becomes the equivalent of this just calculation here on the 9th year of Kaspa's emission. This part of the formula calculates the equivalent year of Kaspa's emission when the block production rate is 32 blocks per second instead of 1. This formula adjusted for 32 blocks per second shows the equivalent year will be the 9th instead of the 14th. So this is when basically most of the Kaspa will be mined. And then it says here, the bottom line, when Kaspa reaches the end of emissions, the miners will be rewarded with transaction fees based on the above formula, since block rewards will cease to exist. For further information, visit the GitHub link and check out the coding. So basically what we want to take from this is that the maximum transaction fee that miners are going to be getting after the 32 years, I think it was, or 36 years, is going to be 0.0425. But it can be under that. It just depends on how many UTXOs are in the transaction fee and how many transactions there are. So I hope you guys learned some more about Kaspa. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to comment below if you have any questions regarding the topic.